The wind outside rattled the windows of the old farmhouse, carrying the chill of late October. Emma lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the shadows on her ceiling. The house was quiet, too quiet. She could hear the soft hum of the fridge downstairs and the ticking of the old clock in the hallway. Everything felt still. But her thoughts wouldn't let her rest. It had been almost 2 years since her mom married David, and they'd moved into his place in rural Vermont. At first, it had felt like starting over. A new family, new surroundings, and a new person sharing the house, Liam, David's son. He was the same age as Emma, just a few months older. And they had met for the first time at the wedding. They didn't speak much at first. Just polite hellos and short conversations in the kitchen. But over time, something shifted. It wasn't obvious. It happened in quiet moments, staying up late talking in the living room, walking to town together or watching old movies when everyone else had gone to sleep. They weren't raised as siblings. They hadn't grown up in the same space. Yet somehow, the word stepbrother still built a wall neither of them knew how to cross. Emma turned in bed and stared at the door, her heart feeling heavier than usual. She hated how her chest tightened when she thought about Liam. It wasn't just a passing crush, not anymore. She felt drawn to him in a way she didn't know how to explain, even to herself. And worse, she had no idea if he felt the same. The hallway creaked. She sat up slowly, heart skipping. The sound came again, soft footsteps. Then her bedroom door opened just a crack. Liam stepped inside, wearing an old sweatshirt and pajama pants. His hair was a mess, like he hadn't slept either. He stood there, quiet, the faint light from the hallway casting a glow on his face. "Emma," he whispered, "you awake?" She nodded. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep," he said, stepping closer. "Mind if I sit for a minute?" She shifted in bed and nodded again. He sat on the edge of the mattress, leaving space between them. His hands clasped between his knees. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then he looked at her, his voice low. "I had a dream. About you. About us." Emma's breath caught. She tried to keep her expression still, but her heart was beating too fast. "In the dream, we weren't step anything," he said. "We were just two people, living together, laughing. Like it was natural." Emma stayed quiet, but her hands curled into the blanket. "I know this is weird," Liam said quickly, "and I'm not trying to make things uncomfortable. But I've been holding this in for a long time. I needed to tell you." She finally looked at him, unsure what to say. His eyes were gentle but serious. He wasn't playing games. He wasn't confused. "I feel something when I'm around you," he continued. "It's not just friendly or convenient. I think about you all the time. And I don't know if I should, but I do." Emma's throat tightened. She'd imagined this conversation so many times, what she would say, how she'd react. Now that it was happening, her words were lost. "You don't have to say anything," Liam added. I couldn't keep pretending anymore." He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't. Their hands touched gently, like they were both afraid it might be too much. His fingers were warm, and the way he held her hand wasn't romantic in the usual way. It was careful, respectful, honest. Then, just as quickly, a voice echoed from down the hallway, "Emma, you still up?" It was her mom's voice. They froze. Liam let go of her hand and stood up. "I should go," he said, his voice soft. Emma didn't stop him. Not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't find the right words in time. He opened the door and left. Without looking back, the room felt colder after he was gone. Emma sank into her pillow, staring at the ceiling again. But everything was different now. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was full of unspoken things, feelings, questions. And a new truth between them. He had come to her in the quiet of night, not to cross a line, but to be honest. And now she had to face the part of her that didn't want to push him away. Emma closed her eyes and held the blanket tighter. Sleep wouldn't come. Not tonight, not after that. The next morning, Emma woke up feeling like the world had shifted, but everything around her looked the same. The trees outside were still turning gold. The kitchen still smelled like coffee. And the morning news played quietly from the living room. But inside her, something was different, like something had been opened that she didn't know how to close again. She avoided the hallway where Liam's room was. She wasn't ready to face him. Her thoughts were too tangled. She kept replaying the night before, the way he looked at her, the way he spoke so honestly, and the quiet way he held her hand. He hadn't asked for anything. He'd just told the truth. And that was what made it harder. All day she stayed busy. Cleaning, reading, scrolling her phone without really seeing anything. She needed time to think, but her mind wouldn't slow down. Was it wrong to feel something for him? Technically, they weren't related. They hadn't shared a childhood, hadn't grown up in the same house, but they lived under the same roof now. And they were supposed to be family, at least on paper. That evening, she finally saw him again. He was in the backyard, tossing a ball for the dog. His sleeves were pushed up, and his expression was unreadable, calm on the outside, but distant. He didn't look her way. She stood by the back door for a moment, watching. She wanted to go to him, say something, anything. But her feet didn't move. And then he turned toward the woods and walked off down the trail. Days passed like that. Slow, heavy, and quiet. Liam stopped showing up in the kitchen late at night. No more shared tea, no more conversations on the porch. It was like a switch had flipped. He wasn't cold, but he wasn't warm either. Just polite, careful, distant. Emma hated it. She hadn't meant to hurt him. She just didn't know what to say that night. And now everything between them felt fragile. It's like it might break if she touched it. On the fourth day, she finally knocked on his door. There was no answer. She opened it slightly and peeked in. Empty. His room was clean. Bed made. Jacket gone. Downstairs, she found a note on the kitchen counter. Gone for a few days. Needed space. Liam, that was it. No explanation. No promise to come back. She stared at the note, heart sinking. She wanted to call him, but she didn't know what she'd say. Would he even want to hear from her? That night, the house felt colder. She curled up on the couch with a blanket and tried to distract herself with TV, but nothing helped. Her mind kept drifting back to the way he'd looked at her in the dark. Not desperate, not pushy, just real. He'd trusted her with his feelings. And she'd frozen. Now he was gone. She thought about all the small things. How he always waited to pour the last cup of coffee in case she wanted it. How he kept extra batteries in the drawer because he knew the remote died often. How he made her laugh without trying. How being around him made her feel safe, seen. He wasn't just someone living in the house. He had become part of her life, quietly, slowly, and then all at once. By midnight, Emma was pacing the kitchen. She kept looking at the door, half expecting him to walk in, say something sarcastic, and pretend nothing happened. But the door stayed shut. She looked at the note again, reading it over and over like the words might change. Needed space. Did that mean he was giving up? Or just waiting for her to figure things out? She thought about the moment he let go of her hand. How quickly he had stepped back when he heard her mom's voice. He had respected her space, even when he didn't want to. That mattered. She went upstairs and sat on his bed. His room still smelled like his cologne. Clean, simple, familiar. She noticed a small notebook on the desk, but didn't touch it. She wasn't ready to cross that line. Instead, she just sat there, surrounded by silence, wondering how someone could become such a big part of her life without her realizing it. And now he was gone. Emma wrapped her arms around her knees and closed her eyes. She hadn't cried, not yet. But the ache in her chest was growing harder to ignore. What scared her most wasn't losing him. It was the thought that maybe he'd already decided she didn't feel the same. That maybe he'd chosen to protect himself by walking away. But she did feel something. She'd just been too afraid to say it. Afraid of what people would think. Afraid of crossing a line. Afraid of what it meant for their family. But in the middle of all those fears was one quiet truth. Liam mattered to her in a way no one else had. And now, with him gone, she felt the weight of that truth more than ever. As the wind picked up again outside, rustling the last of the autumn leaves, Emma sat in the dark and made a quiet promise to herself. If he came back, She wouldn't stay silent. She would tell him everything. 3 days had passed and Liam still hadn't come home. Emma kept checking the driveway, hoping to see his old truck, but every time she looked, the space stayed empty. She told herself not to worry, that he just needed space, like he said. But the truth was, the silence was getting harder to take. She didn't hear from him. No texts, no calls, no updates, just the short note he left behind. And the longer he stayed gone, the more her mind filled in the blanks. Maybe he regretted telling her how he felt. Maybe he was embarrassed, or maybe he wasn't coming back. Each day without him felt heavier than the last. She tried to go about life as usual. She went to work, answered texts from her friends, smiled when her mom asked how she was doing. But behind the smile, she was holding back the storm inside her. Every corner of the house reminded her of him. The chipped mug he always used, the jacket he'd left hanging by the door, the blanket he always pulled over his legs when they watched movies. It was like he was still everywhere, except in the one place she wanted him there, beside her. That night, Emma sat in the kitchen long after everyone else had gone to bed. She sipped cold tea, staring at the clock. She couldn't sleep. Her mind kept circling back to one thing. She never told Liam how she felt. She never said anything that night. And now he probably thought she didn't care. But she did. More than she had ever wanted to admit. The next morning, Emma found herself walking into his room again. It felt wrong at first, but something pulled her in. She needed to feel closer to him, even if he wasn't there. His desk was neat, his bed untouched. She sat on the edge, feeling the quiet around her. For a moment, she closed her eyes and imagined him walking through the door, teasing her like he used to, asking why she always stole the last piece of toast or why she left the light on in the hallway. But the silence didn't answer her. She looked down and noticed something she hadn't seen before. A photo, face down on the nightstand. She turned it over. It was a picture of the two of them from last winter, taken during a family trip. They were standing side by side, cheeks red from the cold, smiling like they had no idea the world could ever get complicated. That smile had been real. Emma felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. She missed that version of them when everything was simple, before feelings got in the way. But maybe feelings didn't ruin things. Maybe hiding them did. She spent the day thinking about what she would say to him if she got the chance. It wouldn't be some big speech, just the truth. That she missed him. That she felt something too. That she wasn't scared anymore by the third night. The house felt too empty to pretend anymore. She sat on the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, watching the stars. The air was cool, the trees whispering in the dark. Everything was calm on the outside, but inside. She was spinning Dot, and then she heard it. The sound of tires on gravel. She shot up from her chair, heart racing. A moment later, headlights turned into the driveway. The old truck rolled to a stop. Liam. Emma froze, standing barefoot on the porch steps as he climbed out of the truck. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much. His jacket was wrinkled, and he had a folded piece of paper in his hand. Neither of them spoke at first. Then he walked toward her slowly, eyes locked on hers. "I didn't know if I should come back," he said. His voice quiet. "I'm glad you did," she replied, trying not to let her emotions take over. He held out the paper. "I wrote this. On the second night, I wasn't sure if I'd give it to you, but it helped me figure things out." Emma took the letter but didn't open it yet. She looked at him, and something inside her finally settled. "You didn't ruin anything," she said softly. "I was just scared. Not of you, of how real it felt. And I didn't know what to do with that." Liam didn't say anything right away. He just looked at her like he was waiting for her to keep going. "I miss you," she said. "I've missed you every day you were gone." He stepped closer, slowly, carefully. "You're not just family to me, Emma. You're the person I want to talk to when everything feels wrong. The one I think about when I hear a song or see something funny. It's always been you." She felt the tears slip down her cheeks. But she didn't wipe them away. This moment, this finally was worth everything. Liam reached out but didn't touch her. He just stood there waiting. Emma closed the space between them and wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't about passion. It was about comfort, about feeling whole again. He held her like she mattered. Like she wasn't just someone he lived with, but someone he chose. They stayed like that for a while. Wrapped in quiet understanding. Later, they sat on the porch together, her head resting on his shoulder as the stars blinked overhead. They didn't need to rush anything. Whatever came next would come when it was right. But for now, he was home, and so was she. The next morning came slowly. Emma woke up early, not because of an alarm, but because her heart was finally at peace. For the first time in days, her chest didn't feel tight. She got dressed and made coffee like usual, but everything felt different now, lighter. She kept thinking about last night, about the way Liam had looked at her, and how safe it felt to finally be honest with each other. She hadn't opened his letter yet. It still sat on the kitchen table, folded neatly like it was waiting for the right moment. She poured a cup of coffee, sat down, took a deep breath before carefully opening it. Liam's handwriting was rough but familiar. She read slowly. Emma, I didn't leave to run away. I left because I needed to know if what I was feeling was real or just a passing thing. Turns out, the longer I stayed away from you, the more I missed you. Not just being around you, but being near the version of myself that only exists when I'm with you. I'm not confused. I'm sure now I care about you, more than I've ever cared about anyone. There was a pause in her chest, and then she kept reading. If you don't feel the same, I'll respect that. I'll never make things uncomfortable. But if there's even a small part of you that sees me the way I see you, then I hope you'll let me in. No pressure. No rush. Just honesty. The letter ended with his name, simple and quiet. Emma folded it carefully and held it to her chest. She didn't need time to think anymore. She already knew. Liam came downstairs not long after, his hair still damp from a shower, wearing a soft gray t-shirt and jeans. He looked more relaxed. But there was still something careful in his eyes, like he wasn't sure where they stood yet. Emma stood from her chair and walked over to him, holding the letter in her hand. I read it, she said gently. He waited. I felt everything you did. I just didn't know how to say it. His eyes softened. You don't have to explain, she smiled. I want to. They sat together at the table just like they used to. No pressure, no expectations. Just a people who had finally stopped hiding from the truth. Over the next few days, things between them grew slowly, naturally. There were no dramatic declarations or rushing into anything. They just spent time together. Morning coffee turned into long conversations. Walks around the property became their quiet escape. Liam would sit next to her on the couch, their shoulders touching slightly. And it was enough. One night they drove to a nearby lake just before sunset. It was quiet, the water still, the sky painted with soft orange and pink. Emma leaned back against the hood of the truck, and Liam stood beside her. I used to think love was supposed to be loud, she said. Big gestures, crazy emotions. But this, whatever this is, it feels real. Liam looked out at the water. Sometimes the quiet things last longer. She nodded. I'm not scared anymore. He turned to her. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. He reached for her hand, and this time it wasn't uncertain. It was steady. They stayed there, holding hands, watching the sky darken as stars began to appear. Back at home, they kept things private. They weren't rushing to explain their feelings to anyone else. Their parents didn't need to know every detail. Not yet. What mattered most was that they understood each other. And for now, that was enough. One weekend, Emma's mom mentioned how nice it was to see them getting along again. You two always had a strange kind of connection, she said with a smile. It's like you read each other's minds. Emma smiled politely, glancing at Liam across the table. Maybe we just understand each other. After dinner, they went for a walk through the woods behind the house. Leaves crunched under their feet, and a cool breeze drifted through the trees. Do you think this will ever get complicated again? Emma asked. Liam looked at her. Maybe. Life always finds a way to challenge people. But whatever happens, I'd rather face it with you than without you. She looked up at him, her heart full. Me too. They reached the old wooden bench near the stream and sat down. For a while, neither of them said anything. The sound of water and wind filled the silence. Then Liam spoke again. I want to build something real with you, Emma. I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but I know it starts with honesty and patience. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And trust. He nodded. Exactly. As autumn gave way to winter, their bond grew stronger. What began as confusion turned into clarity. What once felt impossible now felt like the most natural thing in the world. They were no longer dancing around what they felt. They were building something steady, something gentle, something worth protecting. There were still challenges ahead, conversations to be had. But they weren't afraid anymore. They had each other.